And my first question is, last time I started us off by asking you guys what quality do you want more of. So this time I want to spin that just a little bit. I want to ask you, because the last lesson was all about the value of exactly who we are. So if you could say one quality that was to describe exactly who you think you are, what would you say? You can say it out loud or you can type it in the chat box. One quality that you think might describe you from your perspective. What would that be?
Well, for my 2 cents worth, I don't think I can do
Yeah.
that. And I know you don't want me to go into long discourse, so I'll just pass from here.
It's a challenging one.
But I will say this: my main goal, which is related to that, is to be mindful. Try to always be mindful. Always look at the duality of every situation, and to oh, my laptop's acting up. And to always be aware of the spiritual aspect of everything and the observer position.
Cool. Good. Sunshine, you just came in. I was asking everyone if they could name one quality that they thought might describe who they are, their essence, or their vibration, or whatever words you might use. What would that one word be? And no one has said anything yet, so it's fair game.
Can you repeat that one more time?
If you could describe uh, in one word who you think you are, what kind of quality you think you exhibit or bring to the table just by you being you, what would that one word be? What would that one quality be?
Just one?
If you want to name more, then go for it.
Will it either be love or light?
Cool. Great. That's good. Love or light? It's difficult, I think. It feels like it's kind of difficult to do this. But I think we can more easily say what we want, right? Because basically everyone said that last time, what they want more of. The one quality they want more of. Can someone else name a quality maybe describing who?
I'll put under.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say I put understanding.
Cool. I like that.
I put empathetic.
Cool. Empathetic. That's a good one.
I feel like I could overthink about this.
Uh-huh.
The one that popped in my head was creative.
Creative. Perfect.
I'll add expanded consciousness.
Expanded consciousness. Good, good, good.
I would say for me would be positivity.
Positivity. Totally. That's wonderful. I like this. This is fun. Kara, you came in a second late. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, we're just going around the room, and kind of like last week, we all said one quality that we want more of, want to embody more of. Well, this time we're doing a slightly different take on that. We are just saying one quality that we think that we are. I might say something like perception. I might say that. That's mine.
My mic work?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, I had to touch it a little. I was gonna say tired. That's the one that makes me look good.
Tired. Okay, okay. That's what you are. That's exactly right. That's the present moment experience. Cool. I think that's great. All right, guys. So I want to hear about this new awakening exercise we did the week before. The week before, we did it on resting our attention on the body and something else in the room at the same time and equally. And this week, though, is slightly different. It was to say in our minds, precious, while we observed our body, and despite the mind's easy inclination to claim authorship over the body's movements, we are watching the body until we see that it moves itself. Some kind of witnessing of the body moving itself. I'm just wondering, did anyone have any experience at all with this? I'd love to hear anything. What did you guys do with this exercise? And heck, it could be anything out there. I'm just wondering if anyone had a chance to play with that. Call themselves precious.
I enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Why?
Well, my dad used to always call me precious, and so it just took me back to childhood, and I just started seeing just the natural, sacred nature of my body, like daily reminders.
That's exactly right. That's cool. It's easy to overlook our body. It's easy to overlook ourselves. So that kind of daily reminder, like you were saying, oh yeah, precious. And even just like this idea of putting our attention on it and to possibly watch it move, quote, under its own volition, is an act of it being, an act of self-love, an act of it being precious, just by placing our attention on it. So yeah, that was a daily reminder of self-love. Thank you, Sunshine. Did anyone else have any other experiences to share with that exercise?
I found myself not stopping at precious and just speaking kind words to myself and telling myself I'm beautiful and I'm kind, and I just, it made me realize how often I don't speak. I mean, not that I'm really that negative about myself, but I don't just give myself compliments. Like, good job today, Ashley. And I found myself speaking higher of myself.
Just by saying the word precious, you think?
Yeah, and just paying attention to my movements and how it reminded me, Grandma told me one time when I was making a sandwich that she thought my hands were really graceful. And so I just was watching my hands a lot and saying precious and just loving my skin and my wrinkles and my broken nails and just loving me.
Cool. That sounds awesome. Were you going to say something, Sunshine?
I was gonna say I kind of did the same thing with not just stopping at precious, but every word that flowed.
Cool.
Just enjoying the beauty, connecting the words.
Sounds like you guys are doing some loving yourself. This is awesome. Does anyone else have anything to share from that exercise? KT or Stella, Kevin, any of you guys? Who else is there? Carolyn? Anybody? Who hasn't shared yet?
I felt a little. I when I did it, I felt aware of my body, but I did feel resistance from I don't know, it's a resistance to doing it. So that's interesting.
Is it the resistance to putting your attention on your body, or the resistance to saying something positive to yourself?
I would say the first saying something positive of myself.
Yeah. Right. Totally.
It's like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you know, letting go of that pattern, or putting, you know, it's building that self-love.
Right. Yep. Every step like this moves towards that being easier.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else have a story they can share?
I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but I just wanted to say how much since I wasn't here last week, how much I enjoyed watching you guys' class last week, especially when you brought up this exercise, just everybody like cracking up and having a good time. It made me happy.
Good.
And now I have that like memory tied to when I try this.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to that.
And I love Kara's.
Yeah, I don't know if it was partially because, you know, growing up, it's like I was not allowed to. I don't know how to accept compliments from anybody. It's like that's the easiest conversation killer right there for me. And I could not get past the Lord of the Rings either.
Right.
Which is messed up because I've never even seen it. I only know about that from a cartoon reference.
Yeah, I thought that really stuck in your mind. Yeah. Sunshine.
You should have seen my dad's face when he called me precious. His eyes would bulge out of his head, and he would just... and he'd never seen the movie either.
That's awesome. I had one, I was reflecting after Carolyn said during last class that the heart and the breath moves on its own. And so, I mean, I was reflecting on that afterwards, and I was like, actually, there's a lot of parts in the body that moves on its own. The blood moves on its own. Carolyn said, the heart, and of course the breathing can move on its own. And so it's not that big of a step to even recognize whenever there's an itch and the body automatically itches, or when there is even driving. You don't really think about driving. Your body has done those patterns so many times. You could call it muscle memory or something, or even playing music or something. That's the thing the body does. The mind doesn't play guitar. It does at first whenever it's really bad at it, or the piano. But there are many ways in which the body moves itself, and it's quite a fascinating thing to let it loose like that and let it do its natural thing. Whenever the body does its natural thing is usually when it does something really well. So I was just reflecting on that thing that Carolyn said. This was kind of my experience with it this week, that the heart and the breath and other parts of the body automatically move themselves. But yet we think that we're in complete control of our body, which we are in some control of it, but not 100%.
Well, like when if you move your hand or something, there is no thought behind that that's noticeable anyway.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Many good examples.
Medically speaking, there is so much going on in the body that we are not aware of. The autonomic nervous system is very, very, very complex and very active. And no, we're not aware of it, because if we were, we'd be preoccupied with it all the time.
Right.
Trying to manage it. And that wouldn't really be functional with our limited mentalities.
Right, totally.
So it basically is on autopilot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be impossible to manage all the functions of the body.
Oh, heavens.
Digestion, liver, kidneys, I mean, you name it.
just to barely even that's even a snowflake on the tip of the iceberg.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. Does anyone else have anything to say about that exercise? Okay, so the journal prompt from last week, if anyone took some moments out to journal about the topic, I was curious, or even think about the topic and want to share what your thoughts were about the topic, I'd love to hear. The journal prompt was called, "How is what is described in this lesson self-love, and how do you see that relating to the change you want?" Did anyone have any immediate thoughts from that, or even their journal prompt that they'd like to read?
Okay.
Look at yourself as precious. It's because you are. It's taking that moment to remind yourself. I know I found myself taking a number of baths this week, and special baths, just so that I could sit there and dote on myself and remember that I am precious.
That's awesome. That feels so good. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. And how do you relate that to the change that you want?
What I want the most is a deeper level of self-love.
Boom.
And so what I'm looking to see the underlying truths in the world around me so that I can see more clearly and remember who I am and stay grounded and rooted in peace. Sorry, I just forgot what I was saying.
Your nickname matches that.
What, Carolyn?
Her nickname matches that too.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, House of Love? That's my YouTube channel. It changed it on everything when I changed it on YouTube. It's our nonprofit.
That's cool. I'd like to hear more about that sometime. You should send the group a link to that. I would love to check it out sometime.
Okay. Yeah.
Do anyone else have any journal responses or thoughts about how this lesson relates to self-love and how they see that creating the change that they want?
I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
I did journal a couple paragraphs, but the gist of it was, I've heard this before. I'm exactly where I need to be. I am where I'm supposed to be. It's like I'm not anywhere else, if that makes a little sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes with self-acceptance. When I practice self-acceptance, this is self-love. I also see by just being, I add to the whole. I wrote, I am valuable and precious. I'm seeing the lesson is about self-value and self-acceptance. And I also see it as self-love to act for myself and to be myself, to advocate for myself.
Yeah.
It's a journey for me.
That's amazing.
I've been on this, I guess, a journey for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of self-acceptance is powerful. And I've tried to relate it to self-importance in that last lesson a lot. So that way it's not even so much about I love myself, accept myself, or see the value in myself. It's like literally how absolutely critical and necessary it is for me to be exactly who I am and move that into the world. So, yeah. It seems like it's it can be easier to see the necessity of yourself as an act of self-love than not really seeing the value of yourself and how that fits into the world. But we're focusing on seeing the necessity of it and how that fits into the world. And I think that helps with self-love. Thank you for sharing that, Lynn. That was awesome. Super awesome. Did anyone else have anything to share? Drum roll. Okay, cool. We'll move on. The next thing, ladies and gentlemen, was I was interested in if anyone had an experience with just that thing that Lynn was talking about, which was sharing. Myself and Lynn were talking about that, sharing yourself as an act of love, but sharing yourself this week in a way that maybe in past weeks you hadn't. So did anyone experiment with expressing themselves or sharing themselves, or maybe giving something a little more personal, or just anything they wouldn't have normally said or done this week? Did anyone have an experience with that at all? Did anyone feel inspired or motivated to be more free to be them this week?
I don't know entirely how it relates, but I did have a really interesting experience this week. It's been on my mind all week.
Cool. What was it?
Relationship with a loved one. I just got a whole new perspective on it, and finally have the ability to see why it's not a pleasant interaction, and it's because of all of the unhealthy little details. And so with that sight, I've been able to see how just stepping back and allowing them to coexist and just interacting as the universe brings us together, it creates a natural flow, whereas trying to create something creates the opposite. Like, it's not self-love. It's not self-love to try to push or force anything, no matter what your intentions are. So
That's cool. Totally. I think that relates really well. The next part, your microphone is, there you go. Thank you. I wanted to dive in a moment into, I've got this great example of an image. I've got an image that I wanted to share with you guys that I think describes kind of what Sunshine was saying with the important, when the universe brings us together. And this image describes the interaction there. And then also, it also illustrates how the way in like an image you can have in your mind to understand how everyone came to be who they are in the moment. And then it also includes how important it is for the future for you to be exactly who you are, due to how that will help the future build. And so I just have this image that describes what Sunshine was saying there, and generally what the whole last lesson was. I've kind of been describing it before. I've used my hands, like all 5 parts coming together like this, and then I've said that from each one of these parts is a past experience, as many past experiences, all the loves, joys, and traumas, and all the reasoning that each part has done with all that, everything that leads up to this moment here. It's like this present moment expression of them is kind of like Sunshine was saying. Sometimes it can be difficult understanding people like this, or they seem in conflict to us, or in opposition to us. But when we can kind of let them be, like Sunshine was saying, that this seeing the possibility of what they must have experienced in their life for their present moment expression to be as they are helps us to kind of let them be as they are and just interact with them as the moment as it occurs in the moment. So that's reflecting on it onto the past. And then as far as our importance, so let's say this thumb is us, it is absolutely critical for, so this is the other part of it, Sunshine, is because it's like, yeah, let them be, and then also it for like this person's evolution, and even evolution of every person they come in contact with in the future, it's actually pretty critical for you as this part to interact with this part to begin to help them come to a higher conclusion or a more whole-minded perspective about whatever it is that they're clearly having challenges with. And so when this is highlighting the importance of us sharing ourselves and giving ourselves, even though we have the tendency sometimes to hold back because it seems like it's not helpful, or it's painful in some kind of way, or it's conflict, or whatever it might be, or we feel unvalued, or like no one, or like they're not listening to us or don't care. But it is. But if in this present moment situation, this part, which is you, doesn't share, and doesn't engage, and doesn't interact, then these other parts stay as they are, or at least they stay as they are in regards to whoever interacted in that present moment. Like say it was just these two that interacted with each other, and you, the thumb here, stayed out. So the point is whenever you give of the unique perspective and value that you are from all the past experiences that you have had, each person here has cultivated a very valued, very unique perspective that only each of these people can give to the moment. And so if any part leaves their understandings that they have gained throughout life out in that present moment, then the future moment, those parts in the future moments don't have that extra perspective, that much more of a whole-minded perspective to carry with them in the future and interact with others with that whole-minded perspective in the future. So literally, when you give of yourself here and now, you help future moments that you aren't even in or a part of to become more whole-minded due to you fully giving of yourself in each one of these moments. So the point is there is, in a present moment, it's important to see where each one of these parts have come from and all the stuff that they must have experienced in the past that would create their expression that they are now. And also, in regards to the future, it's absolutely critical for each one of these parts, you, to share of your perspective that you've cultivated from all these past experiences, in order to help create a more whole-minded perspective for everything in the future. So it goes both ways, both the value of each person's past experience and the value of each person expressing for the future experiences.
I'd like to talk more with you about that experience later.
Yeah, what do you mean about that experience? You mean like that image?
There's more details. I was just trying to keep this pretty short. But that family member struggles with addiction.
Right.
And I realized that attempting to interact, like trying to push interaction, was unhealthy for me when I started observing in my own thought processes and the way that I replied and responded, things that I recognized as addictive mindsets. And as soon as I realized that, that's not self-love. That's not self-love. I have to try a different approach.
So in these interactions, you were attempting to, how would you say it? You're attempting to do what? And then you realized that you couldn't do that because that wasn't self-love.
we were just trying to spend a day together.
Right. Yeah, that can be really challenging.
And it was like we ran into every obstacle, everything that it keeps us from spending a day together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I mean, it was a very tumultuous experience, but it was also a really profoundly healing experience. Being able to start to see and recognize, not necessarily in the moment, but still that day, what it was that I was seeing in my thought processes.
Mm-hmm.
And why my body was having the reactions to things that I was.
Cool. So what I hear is that you might need to mute it again. But what I hear is that you are discerning what absolutely works best with this individual in a present moment that both creates probably something more beneficial for them and definitely self-love for you at the same time. And I think that is super important to be able to do. And then on a scale that is slightly different, but still in the present moment, it's like your being, your expression was there with him, and that very sheer, exactly who you are, Sunshine, was, I'm sure, one of 50 or 1,000 more high-minded, loving interactions that person needed to have, or sheer, just pure interactions that person needed to have in order to come to any kind of even slight or actual change. And so really what we're describing here is the moment. So you coming together with them is the moment coming together, and then there's like an incremental change that happens with them, right? And so that incremental change is carried with them in the future to the next coming together, whether that's you next time or another person, it doesn't matter, but that person comes together with you or another person again, and then through the interaction, through the giving of yourself, there is another incremental change that won't even be noticeable, but each one of even just you being present with them is a kind of sharing your expression, you exactly as you are, and then within that is what you were saying that you are finding to be true, which is certain type of expressions with him work better than others, and that's like a even more even more smaller. It's like you're discerning what works better and what doesn't, which is super important. That's part of it too. Awesome. And then at a larger scale, just your sheer presence with him is part of the your presence with him is your expression, which helps to influence him in the future and helps to influence the future in general. Does that make sense? There's like two things happening there at once. It's an interesting topic because addiction is a super whole nother thing that's fascinating. And yeah, I would like to talk with you more in detail about that if you want to, for sure. I've had a lot of experience with that.
It was really interesting for me to have such a clear recognition of these things inside of my own self, because it's not something that I thought I had ever dealt with, but it's something I deal with whenever I deal with a loved one who deals with it. That realization was really eye-opening.
Cool.
Really eye-opening.
That's awesome. Okay, guys. Self-love. I think we're all seeing the value of placing self-love in a few different ways, whether it's placing it with our attention on our body or saying precious to ourselves or other positive kind of words. And also self-love in terms of just our sheer presence, the quality that we exude and exhibit just by us being us, which is the whole essence of that lesson, is just the absolute importance of exactly who you are to humanity and evolution itself. And so we could go into a bunch of different examples, which I would love to if anyone else has another example, or even the one that Sunshine shared there was really good too. Just by her presence is going to be healing for that individual. Does anyone else have any thoughts or experiences with that? Can you say that again?
Not if I fall into their... It's not healing if I fall into their patterns, though.
No. Right.
I have to stay firmly rooted in the truth of who I am and not become enmeshed with their energies. Or it goes from being healing to a nightmare real fast.
Nice job at catching that, too.
What's that?
Nice job at catching that, too, those patterns before you fall into them. Because that's not what I'm saying to express.
I had to him a couple times before I saw what he was doing.
It's so interesting because when I say express who you are, it includes all of what you're reasoning that wouldn't be a good idea to express, or all of that you're reasoning that would be a good idea to express. Like literally whatever you come up with to say, and the whole evolution of where you're coming to with how to interact with them is part of you and your vibration and your thing that you have to give to the world. So good job on that micro level of things that you're describing. I think you're figuring something out there, definitely. Does anyone else have any examples or questions about that lesson before we move on to the next lesson? Any questions about self-love or the value of expressing yourself? Maybe it's, in some ways, is it not clear? Because Sunshine was bringing up some good examples of, or maybe not even Sunshine's example, but in general, it could be some questioning in our mind of like, when is it helpful to express a certain thing, or when is it not, or what is the lesson really saying in regards to that kind of stuff? Are there any questions or thoughts about any of that? Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, guys, well, then we'll move on to the next lesson. Before we start that, I wanted to say that this is the halfway point. We have been doing this for 5 weeks now. This is the 5th class, so this is halfway, and congratulations. And also, I wanted to say, much like that text message that I sent a lot of you, it's easy to be overwhelmed by all the responsibilities and the things that we've taken on in life and all the parts of life that wants to take our attention. And even though we may very well want to spend a lot of time on this kind of endeavor, this kind of spiritual work or whatever, it's not always possible. And so I just wanted to say that to the degree that you guys find yourself doing the exercises and the assignments is literally to the degree that you should have done them. Because that is accounting for, this is important, listen, that is accounting for your life. All the things in your life that you have to do, all the responsibilities you have, all the desires you have, all the things that come up in relation to your life experience. And so within that context, sometimes there's a lot of extra room, and sometimes there is zero extra room, and we have to like leave out tons of stuff. And so I just want you to know that however life unfolds for you that week in regards to I mean, certainly with the lessons and the exercise and the writing assignment, but also with everything else in life. It unfolds that way due to exactly that being the only way everything could have fit due to how your life was that week. And therefore, not to be hard on ourselves when everything doesn't fit into our life in the way that we would have planned if it was perfect. Because that idea of perfect doesn't account for actual life. And so don't be hard on yourselves if there isn't the time every single week to fit in all of these things. I think that's important to know, because the real importance of, I think a large part of the takeaway from this class is the in-class experience. And yes, absolutely, we give ourselves tons of experiences throughout the day that relates to the stuff that we're doing in this class. And I see this class as the place where we get new information imprinted upon us, and then that just goes with us throughout all those little experiences throughout the week that I was talking about. And they kind of filter through wherever we're facing throughout the week and influence how we think and how we negotiate that moment. And so we come back here each week to kind of have these more discussions like this, and our thoughts perhaps reach places that they hadn't seen before, or we think about something in a slightly different way, and so then we move throughout the week, and as we have a different present moment experience, those thoughts filter down, and we make different choices based on what's happening in that moment. So it is these in-class discussions, and especially whenever people get when we go over the new lesson, usually people have a lot of awesome thoughts about the new idea. I think those interactions, and also just the new idea in general, is really the important part that we take with us all week. And so the little practices and exercises and stuff are really kind of for when the universe aligns perfectly and you actually have extra time. So not to be overwhelmed. There's an important factor to that. There's an important thing about that, because it's very easy to be hard on ourselves in general, but the reality of things is exactly the way life lands. It couldn't have landed any other way due to the stuff that you accepted as your major priorities in life, which can't be changed. You've prioritized certain things in your life as number one, number two, number three, number four, number five, whether you're conscious of it or not. And because you put those things in a certain priority, the way life unfolds as far as the amount of time you have to do for what couldn't be any other way due to the priority order that you have for things. And so not to feel bad about yourself whenever one of the things that you wanted to do that week can't be done, can't fit in. That just means it was meant for another time. And so we can kind of relax in knowing that the parts of the world are always coming in and moving and shaking and shucking and driving and just kind of flexing and flowing, and it's important for all those parts to be shaped like they're shaped when they happen. So sometimes it's shaped like I don't have enough time, and sometimes it's shaped like I do have plenty of time. So appreciate however it falls that week, because it's important on many levels. Just because it may wane on maybe doing the journaling prompt, there wasn't a loss, because there was somewhere the time was spent that was important for you to spend your time there. And this is an example we're using with class, but goodness, this is an example that's true with every moment in our life, with every activity that we do. So, it's helpful to have those kinds of thoughts in mind. So not even necessarily in regards to class, but just in general in life. So we're not so hard on ourselves at times. So with this being our halfway mark, lesson number 5, we'll go ahead and start this new lesson. This new lesson is called My Very Existence is Support. My very existence is support. Which really means that no matter what way I look at it, I am being supported. And really, in the last lesson, we were describing how we support, how we are doing supporting by giving our true self. This lesson, we're not so focused on the giving the expressing our true self part as support, but it's part of how you can conceptualize our entire existence as being support, which is the name of this lesson. Okay, guys, so I'm going to share my screen with you. Lesson 5. Could I get a thumbs up if you guys can see the lesson? Yeah, great. Okay, guys, let me know if there are any thoughts as we move along through this. Lesson 5, my very existence is support. In past lessons, we investigated just how important seemingly bad experiences in our lives are after we move beyond the surface level black and white interpretation. So we went over that a bunch. In the last lesson, we applied this to ourselves. This, nothing is right or wrong, which was described in the lesson as looking deeper than black and white, right and wrong, looking to understand our unique differences as the actual propulsion that moves evolution forward, is what naturally starts to deepen a confidence in the importance of ourselves and expressing ourselves. So you could even correlate the words propulsion with evolution, with confidence, and expressing ourselves. When we clearly see how each past diversity, opposition, or difference was the literal propulsion for the next highest potential of our lives, we start to look at the bad things in our lives with a different eye. Having taken the time to truly see what we have become through these seemingly bad past moments, and thus what those moments have given us, their purpose and importance in the foundation of how life moves, we can start to see the continual exchange that has always been occurring between these black and white energies, good and bad, right and wrong. The continual exchange. When we are truly rooted in this understanding, we can no longer identify with one side or the other, calling this side bad or that side good. But instead, we see evolution itself taking care of us, loving us, walking us home to our highest potential no matter what is presently occurring. In the last lesson, we applied this primarily to the expression of individuals, which we went over a whole bunch. Awesome last lesson. No expression is bad is essentially what we went over, and in fact, we expressed the value of it. Giving the much needed permission for us to be ourselves at a deep level by understanding the important role each of us has had in life and to evolution itself. In this week's lesson, however, we will flip it. Instead of looking back and seeing how important we are in each past moment, we will look forward at how important each future moment is for us. The primary challenge to this is we never truly know what a future moment has in store for us, and so have a tendency to resist or fear what is unknown. So imagine the freedom in trusting the unknown, trusting that life is always on your side. Not just trusting, but imagine the freedom of actually reasoning to see for ourselves that life has always been on our side this whole time. That's hard to right away to... It can easily seem like we're in a alien world where we need to fend for ourselves and we're alone and we're an individual and we got to watch out what happens in the next corner. It's easy to have that perspective, to not feel supported. But imagine if what that would be like to feel supported and to know that everyone and everything was out for your best interest. So I'm going to read this part again. Imagine the freedom in trusting the unknown, trusting that life is always on your side. Not just trusting, and this is the key part we're going to go into with this lesson, not just trusting, but we're going to go into imagine the freedom of actually reasoning to see for ourselves that life has been on your side this whole time. Wouldn't that be wonderful to actually see in what way life has actually been on our side the whole time? To know that and to move through life knowing that life is actually on my side. Do you have, so this is a question, do you have someone in your life who has always been there for you? A parent, a guardian, family member, or dear friend? So you can just reflect on that right now. Who has been in your life that has always been there for you? It seems like they always have your best interest in mind. Maybe it was a parent, other family member, sibling, a friend that you made at some point. When you reflect on the time spent with them, can you clearly see and trust? Can you clearly see the trust and support that has always been there? You know, no matter how they seem to be directing the interaction with you, they will always bring it back to your highest good. You know that with this type of person. So, it's interesting that we have the clear perception of maybe that one person who we know they will always bring it back to our highest good. But that isn't our experience with everyone or everything. And so in this lesson, I hope that we'll expand out a little farther to see how past the surface level, everything has actually been supporting us. I'm going to read on. And so you naturally know there is no reason to resist or fear them. We're talking about the person who's always seemed like they were there for you. Parent or guardian, family member, dear friend. You naturally know there's no reason to resist or fear them, no matter where things seem to be going. This is similar to life, except that because we often stay in black and white thinking, we don't see the kind of good that life has always been leading us to. So, it is not trusted. You would have to see the good that something is leading you to be able to trust it. And because it's not immediately apparent, it's just not immediately apparent to us that we're being led to something good, it's easily not trusted. Life is easily not trusted. But, I'm going to read on, but when we reflect on the time spent with life, to clearly see the support that has always been there at a deeper level, we see life has always been leading us and will always be leading us to our highest good. Just like that loving, trusted family member or friend in our life. To trust the unknown in this way, we would have to clearly see how there has never been a loss. And this is a key point here, because it's easy for us to reflect on our past experiences and be like, no, there has been terrible things that has happened, and this is absolutely a tragedy. This is absolutely a mishap. This is absolutely a mistake. This is absolutely a not good situation. And so in order to trust the unknown, like we're talking about, the future, essentially, we would have to clearly see how in the past there never has been a loss. Okay, I'm going to reiterate this in a different way. If we want freedom now, and if we want freedom in each one of our present moments, guys, then we have to realize in what way the past has done nothing but added to us. Despite what clearly may seem like bad things, in the end, we have to see in what way it's created what we are now, and thus has been supporting us then. We have to see that in order to have a high quality present moment, because if we see at all that something from the past has taken from us now and was a bad experience, then we will automatically project that onto the future. The future being a thing to be feared or resist, or that something bad or scary could jump out of the next corner. And so to live a more aligned present moment, we have to see from our past bad experiences what they have added to us now. The way that we are different now that is good, that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for that past bad experience. And whenever we get that, then that automatically reflects out to the future, and we know we can trust whatever the future brings, because it will bring us nothing but our next step to our highest maturity and our highest evolution. I'm going to read on. I'm going to read that sentence again. To trust the unknown in this way, we would have to clearly see how there has never been a loss. It's important. See the way in which each experience has added something to us. To trust the unknown, which is the future, we need to deeply know from our own investigation into our past, everything that has been only was the opportunity to deepen our understanding of life and connection to ourselves. And as such, each future moment only has the capacity to create exactly what we want at the most beneficial level. I'm going to read that again. Each future moment only has the capacity to create exactly what we want at the most beneficial level, deepening us still farther. So what is this beneficial level? Beneficial level is the capacity that we're all at right now wouldn't be as high as it is without the diversities of the past. If we didn't approach any diversities in our life, there would not have been an evolution, and we would still have the same consciousness we had at that point, same consciousness we had as a child. So we can trust that each future moment, I'm going to read this again, only has the capacity to create exactly what we want at the most beneficial level. Meaning that whatever may seem at first that comes in from the future as bad, we know from past experiences that it will only bring our next greatest potential, our next highest evolution of ourselves, due to that seeming diversity. And when we start to see life in this way, we no longer identify with one side being bad or one side being good anymore. We see literally those two energies of black and white, good and bad, as evolution itself, as life itself, walking us to our next beautiful spot in creation, our next highest potential. I'm going to read the last paragraph. At the surface, there's no possible way for bad things to not happen to us. And this is key. This is important to rest on even for a second, because it's easy for our mind to be like, well, there's all kinds of bad things that happen. And I want to agree that yes, there are clearly bad things that happen, and in reality, there's no possible way for bad things not to happen. I think everyone knows that. And so I want to appreciate the pains that each one of us have had in our lives, the traumas that each one of us has had in our lives, and the difficulty and diversity that each one of us has suffered in our past. It's important to honor that, and in no way is any of this degrading that in any kind of way, because there is no way for us to move through life and not have experienced bad things. I'm going to read on. But as we move forward from these points, we have only two choices. One is to stay there, stuck at it being a bad thing, a mistake, or misfortune in some way. When we look forward with this attitude, however, it casts a scary shadow of a future where we need to be in fear or resist what might come around the next corner. This is important. Or two, this is option number 2, is where we deliberately seek to find the benefit to free ourselves, not only from the past, but from a past, but I'm going to read that sentence again. Or the second option, besides the scary option, is where we deliberately seek to find the benefit to free ourselves not only from the past, but from a present moment bound by a projected future of possible misfortune, mistake, and failure. When we see that both the past and the future have offered, when we see what they have offered and will offer, that they have and will offer nothing but a building to our highest potential, we are freed into a new identity, freed into a world we have never known before. This is awakening. So there's really two options. Well, option 1 is when that terrible thing comes into our mind that had happened, we can stay at it being a bad thing. And this doesn't, what I'm suggesting here doesn't even change the fact that it is or isn't a bad thing. It might possibly be able to, but the point is also, at least also, we recognize our benefit from it. We recognize what it has given to us. Because if we stay at it just being a bad thing only and not that we did benefit from it, then we project that into the future, creating a scary future where we always have to be defending ourselves in the present. So in order to free ourselves, and as this last line says, move into a new identity, we have to see that benefit of all those past experiences that trouble us. And when we actually get that those past experiences that are seemingly bad benefited us as to our character and how we move in the world today, when we see that correlation, then it immediately projects a supportive future in front of us. And this creates a whole new identity. This is living in the present moment, free of projected future resistances or fears, and free of thoughts coming up from the past, blocking the quality of our present moment experience. And this is a new identity. This is letting go of the worries of the future and letting go of what's holding us down from the past. Step into new shoes, a new identity. But in order to do this, we have to see in what way we have benefited from those terrible experiences of our past, and what way that's cultivated a particular type of if it wasn't for that bad experience, we wouldn't be moving in the world in the way that we are today and the way that we value. When we make that connection, then we know that we were supported by what seemed like a bad thing that matured us. And we know that anything that comes around the corner next will also be there to mature us. And will also be there to bring us to an even higher level. And this is the freedom in the present moment that this lesson brings. Any thoughts or other ways to expand on this, or questions that come up, guys?
This reminds me of that parable of the Taoist farmer. Do you know that one?
I think so. What was it?
He's essentially like, he's planting crops, his horse runs away, and everybody in the town kind of says, oh my gosh, that's so terrible, I'm sorry that happened to you. And he's just like, we'll see. And then the horse comes back, brings horses, and everyone says, oh, what a great fortune that your horse brought wild horses back with it. And he said, we will see. And then his son falls off the horse and breaks his leg while he's taming one.
Oh, man.
So it's just like, kind of essentially what you're saying, too. Like, you never know what's going to come from something that happens in your life.
I love that parable so much. I think the rest of it goes, so now the farmer's son has the broken leg because of what seemed like a fortune of, the horse bringing back a bunch of other wild horses with it. Now what seemed like a fortune seems like a terrible thing. And then now all the people of the village are coming over and saying, oh, I'm so sorry about your son, his broken leg. And the wise farmer, like you're saying, KT said, maybe. And and then what happens next is like the military comes in and takes all the sons ready to go to war. Well, of course, they pass up the one with the broken leg, and you never really know what's good or what's bad. And totally, that is what this lesson is saying. It's like, in what way is everything supporting us? In what way is that broken leg actually supporting the farmer and his son? That's a different kind of outlook on life.
I feel like that totally applies to the experience I had this week too.
The one with that guy we were talking about?
Yeah, with my family member who deals with addiction.
How do you see that related?
It's just one moment. Like, yeah, it seems like bad fortune on that day, but stepping back and looking at it, no, like, it's going to be a huge blessing.
Right, totally.
Learning how to interact in a healthy way.
Totally. Yeah, good point. Thank you, Sunshine. Any other thoughts on that, guys? Does anyone immediately feel challenged by the idea of looking for a benefit of maybe a trauma or something clearly had happened terrible to them in their lives? Does anyone feel particularly challenged with that? And you don't have to express any details. I'm really just curious. Or does this fit right away in a way to free ourselves in the present? Really free ourselves from the past by seeing the benefit, but immediately it also frees ourselves from a kind of fear or resistance or defense of a possible scary future too. So it frees ourselves in the present moment by being able to see how we benefited from everything in our past. Is anyone immediately challenged by that or have a block to that in some kind of way?
Well, I think where we get into trouble is when we try to tell somebody else that's not ready for that.
Oh, totally, yeah.
It's one thing for you to recognize that this was for your highest good, but it's completely different for somebody else to try to tell you that when you're not ready to hear it.
That's a good learning right there. Yep. Yeah, that's super important to know. Yeah, because also.
What?
Yeah, go ahead, Stan.
You know why that is. Because when we come to those realizations ourselves,
right,
we're comfortable or at least much more comfortable with considering whatever that premise is. But if it's coming from someone else, it's impacting on our psyches, and depending on the ego state at the time, the ego can easily interpret that as some sort of attack.
Totally. It absolutely can. That's a good point.
And I mean, and this is true across the board with so many different things. If it's something that our material level mind ego is not comfortable with, for whatever reason, it's going to interpret that as some sort of threat.
Mm-hmm.
It may be a threat to our preconceived notions, our cultural indoctrinations, whatever, our favorite hobby horses, you name it. But if it's something that comes from within us, some sort of a realization, even if it is not comfortable and we don't want to, we're not comfortable with immediately adopting it, it's still coming from within us.
So you know what's
therefore,
helpful?
It does not have the threat factor as an external does.
Right, and so in order to, it's so interesting, the ego, like you're saying, Stan, in order to not feel threatened, Carolyn, it is better not to tell people that kind of stuff when they're in the middle of that experience. And what is most helpful in the middle of a bad experience is definitely to tell them how bad it was. That is literally the empathizing when someone is in the middle of something bad is the number one best thing to do. And kind of like we're suggesting here is only, kind of like Stan is suggesting, it's like only either under your own volition or after some time and it's not so sensitive, can we suggest how to look that maybe it was a benefit in some kind of way.
One way to avoid, or pretty much avoid, creating the sense of confrontation is, and you got to jump 2 or 3 sentences, interactions ahead to do this. You got to really be of clear mind, is to ask them questions and let them, and help them shine the light ahead of them and let them lead themselves into that increasing light.
Sure. Yeah, good examples. Hey, Kara, do you have any thoughts about any of this? Love to hear anything you have to share.
I would agree. If I had had somebody else try to tell me the things that I realized myself in reflecting back on those actions, I wouldn't have been able to hear it as fully or clearly. Like, seeing and learning for yourself really is the gentlest and most powerful.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Kara, did you or anyone else have? I would love to hear what you have to say, Kara, if you have any thoughts about this.
Oh, just that perspective is hard
to
keep when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's very hard. In the middle of it, for sure. Yep. I think when in the middle of it, for me, this perspective gives me hope to know that I'm in the middle of a process. It's kind of like the tree in the summertime with full and beautiful leaves. And then fall comes and he starts to lose his leaves and he starts to get freaked out by the process he's in the middle of. And now all of a sudden, he is in the dead of winter and all growth has seemingly stopped and is really freaked out by the process he's in the middle of. However, when the tree can, in this analogy, can reflect and remember that there is a cycle that it goes through, and there's hope that he will have gained some benefit from this winter season that he's in, then it is still difficult in the dead of winter for that tree, but it makes it a little bit more bearable knowing that there's hope that this actually leads somewhere. This is a cycle that goes somewhere. And our experience is the same thing in the dead of it, in the dead of winter of painful, bad things. It can seem like a bad thing for sure, but it definitely, when we reflect on other bad experiences, we can see that it is a cycle and that it does lead to summer again. I think that's the thing that helps me the best in those experiences, just to know that it is a cycle and I am in the middle of a process.
Good or bad, nothing lasts forever. So.
Right. This too shall pass, right? It is still difficult in the moment, though. But just knowing that it is a process is one of the most helpful things for me. And so that whenever we talk about the actual process itself, like we do in this class, when we highlight the different parts, it can help us to see, okay, I'm in this part right now. And that's helpful to know, because if you don't have any other context and you're just in the bad part, then that's really sucky. And that seems extra worse. And that's like when you're completely devastated. No hope, hopelessness. But
trying to explain to others why your path is different when they want to do everything they can to try to fix you and make you just like them, but it's not going to work. Like, no. I can tell you right now, personally, if I was not the way that I am, I would not be able to do the things that I have gotten involved with. I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I did, none of it.
Exactly. I know. You've had a unique situation. That's a good example.
And it's like they want to do a suffocating prayer circle, and it's like, what about this? I am the way that I am because that's how I'm supposed to be, and your intervention's not needed.
Did you say a suffocating prayer circle?
I'm not kidding. People see somebody with a vision impairment and they think they can pray over you and get you your sight back.
Oh.
But it doesn't work like that.
Right. Yeah, I don't think anyone you told anyone in this class yet, but yeah, Carolyn has it's a vision impaired, right? Is that what you said?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you probably didn't notice early on when you first popped the lesson up on the screen. I got real close to it to try to yeah, exactly.
Right.
That was why.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I know now I would not be involved with the organizations that I'm involved with, and it keeps me from getting too immersed in any of it. It's like I need to be immersed, but at the same time I need to still stay separated so I can stay somewhat objective.
Right.
I don't know.
And if it wasn't for the being vision impaired, then you wouldn't have this motivating, driving force behind you to be a part of these organizations that actually make a difference and a change in a world. So if it wasn't for this seemingly bad thing that people are wanting to do a suffocating prayer circle around you with, then you wouldn't be affecting the great change that you're doing in the world today.
Right.
It's literally the propulsion that drives evolution forward. You are literally part of the propulsion that's driving the way that we approach vision impaired things and other handicap accessible things. You are the propulsion that's driving it forward. And that's important to say the least. And so it's not a bad thing. It doesn't need fixed. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this? Ashley or Kevin or Hi, Ashley.
Well, hey.
Yes.
I'm over here just like having an emotional wreck.
Oh wow, cool.
But no, it's so true, and we learn it through things. But and it's so. Everyone said this already. It's so hard when you are going through something to see like why did that happen, and one day when the situation arises and you get to use that gift of the situation you had in your past for a greater good, and you see your bigger purpose, and it's such a beautiful thing to experience and know that you were strong enough to push through. And I just it's beautiful. And when you were talking about the white and the black, and I was just thinking that it paints the picture of our life. And if we were all one color, we would be nothing.
Right. That's that propulsion again. That's so beautiful. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if someone's in the middle of something, but it's literally how life becomes better, right? Actually, did you say that you're in the middle of something?
Um, I if I don't know that I'm in the middle of something right now.
Cool.
So many situations were going through my head.
Right.
I guess we are all in situations. But memories of physical abuse.
Yep.
And I had 1 year of my life where I moved to a new state and I didn't know anyone, and I lost 9 family members, and I felt so alone, and I had very, very negative thoughts. And the fact that I pushed through them, and I'm so much stronger now, and I love myself. And that year, I didn't, why is this happening? And now when I can empathize with those around me and love those that go through similar things, but also knowing that whatever life throws at me, I know I'm stronger and I'm going to make it through.
Good job. That's amazing. We're all with you right now. Thank you for opening that space, Ashley. Because that's the space that this is all about. And in the same way you're describing, because of what you've been through, you're going to have that also as a tool to know that you can go through anything, evidence that no, you can go through anything, and also to help someone else who might be experiencing something similar. In that same way, in that same exact way that we can reflect that from ourself, our experiences of ourself, to the value in being able to help someone else due to our experiences. In that same way, where we reflect on the value of those past experiences, when we truly see the value of those past experiences, we can begin to know that whatever comes in the future we'll be able to handle, and it's only going to make us that much stronger, just like Ashley was saying. That is the essence of what this is talking about. There's so much freedom in that too.
It's from life's hardest lessons that we learn the most.
Absolutely.
And it may take a long time to realize what those lessons are. And I'm speaking of myself. Many years. It can take many years to be able to come to the realization that there was a meaningful, important lesson in what we went through. But the key is to be mindful of the fact that there is a lesson in almost everything that we go through, and to open ourselves to receive that lesson, and to ask to be shown that lesson, to
Right.
look for it.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, guys, it's about 7:30, but I want to present my screen one last time and go over the little extra homework thing real quick. You know, the 3 little practices here at the bottom. Okay, the first one, of course, is read the lesson every day when possible, in the morning, the evening, and in different moods, to allow the words to influence different perspectives you may have at different times. So that's totally the same. And then the awakening practice is a little different. It's a little different this time. It's a little of a different one. It is gaze at a tree. Gaze at a tree. And think of all the ways it supports and is supported, despite what a tree goes through each year. Okay, so that's a fun and kind of a different one than we have been doing in the past. And the journaling for this week is, what might seem like, so the question is, what might seem like a bad thing from a tree's perspective? What is it that might seem like a bad thing from the tree's perspective? So journal that. And then, how is this bad thing necessary for the whole? Ashley really hit on this really well. But how is this bad thing necessary for the whole, and how does that relate to growth? So the 2 practices this week are definitely related to each other, as they usually are, and revolving around our contemplation and reflection over how a tree relates to its environment, both through giving and receiving. And we can relate our understandings and conclusions received to our own life experience, to our own life. So those are the new practices for this week. If you guys have time, get a chance to connect more deeply with this idea of the most surface level interpretation of bad being, we can't stop just at that surface level interpretation. These exercises are, again, supporting, deepening our understanding of how the whole moves. To give us greater clarity and to awaken. All right, guys. I love you all tons. And I look forward to hearing what you guys come back with next week. You always have great things, and I appreciate everyone who came and shared. And I'll get this video recording sent to you guys, and then also several people who didn't come tonight, and then I'll also send you guys the PDF ASAP as well, and stay in contact. I'll talk to you guys later. Good night, guys.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. You're welcome. Good night.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.